What's going on? My name is Chad with GovX, and today we're talking about how to zero your scope to your rifle. Now, if you're unfamiliar with GovX, GovX offers discounts on products like this scope and tons of other really cool items to those that are serving their country or communities. So let's back up a little bit and talk about zeroing your scope once again. So you buy your scope, you buy your rifle, you mount the two together, but you can't expect necessarily your first shot to line up with your scope, with where your scope is looking, right? So that process of calibrating the two is called zeroing. So that's what we're gonna be taking you through today. Before we do, I wanna let you guys know that this scope is the Vortex Viper scope. This one is a 6.5 to 20 magnification with a 50mm objective lens. This thing retails for $699, and once again, you can get this for a discount on govx.com. So as I explained, you take this scope out of the box, it's beautiful, you throw it on your rifle, and you've got a little bit of work to do from that point on. So we're gonna talk about that. First of all, how do you get this scope onto your rifle? Well, generally speaking, you're gonna mount it with rings, just like this. So this one specifically has a 30mm tube. So I'm gonna look for 30mm rings, and then they are different heights. So there's generally like a low, a medium, a high, sometimes like a super high that you can get based on the firearm that you're using it with. So this one specifically is a 30mm high ring. Everyone likes their scope set up a little bit differently. I just like to make sure that my scope is basically as close to my barrel as possible. So I want as low a rings as possible, but obviously I don't want it touching the gun because the recoil will affect it. So as low as I can get while safely still having some clearance between this and the gun itself is sort of my goal. Now, once you've found the right ring sizes for your setup, there are a couple more things to keep in mind. Number one, as you're mounting this, you'll generally want some sort of a small level to make sure that you're staying perfectly level. Obviously make sure your gun's level first, then throw this on top and make sure it is level as well. Second is most of these ring manufacturers will call out a specific torque setting while tightening these rings around your scope into the gun. So just make sure you're following those to the best of your abilities. And once you're properly mounted up, everything's torqued, everything's level, everything's set, it's time to head out to the range. So I took my buddy Brian out to the range to zero this thing in. I took Brian because I can't really film myself. So Brian's gonna be the one shooting, but I'll walk you through basically what we did to get this thing zeroed in. All right, so step one, once you're out at the range, determine how far you want to zero your scope. For me, I prefer 100 yards. I prefer this because generally speaking at 100 yards, I don't have to worry about wind being a factor. Sometimes I've found when zeroing at 200 yards, wind can kind of become a factor, and the next time I come out, my scope isn't zeroed where I thought it was because I was adjusting for the wind that day. So I've found that 100 is what I prefer to zero at. So once you've determined that, set a target out at your specified distance, and if possible, use a 1-inch grid target. This will make adjusting your scope very easily, especially on something like this, which adjusts, like I said, 1/4 of an inch per click at 100 yards. So I know on that 1-inch grid target exactly how many clicks I need to move after my initial shots. So step two, once you've got your target all set up, is we need to create a very stable base for both you and the gun. This is a base to where the firearm will not move. You can basically lock it into position so that you can fire that first shot without any variables of it moving around. You can use a bipod, a rest, sandbags, you can lay prone, whatever you want to do. We decided to set up on a bench here with a bipod. Once everything is set up and secure, the next step is what's called bore sighting. Now this will allow us to be able to get like a rough zero. If we do this right, we should be hitting within about 6 inches of the center of the bullseye. So this will get us really close, then we can dial it in and make those minor adjustments to really lock it in place. Now you can do this with a laser bore sight, but if you don't have one, no biggie, we didn't have one, so this is how you do it without one. If you're using a bolt gun, remove the bolt. If you're using an AR, just remove the lower. So the upper is the only thing we're utilizing here because we're looking through the barrel. Now a little tip, if you are using a bolt gun, I've found that I like to load a magazine and insert the magazine beforehand so that it's already in there, the bolt's out of the gun, but the magazine is loaded and in the firearm. And we'll talk about why that matters a little bit later. But once the bolt is removed, we just looked through the barrel and basically adjusted the gun until the target that we were aiming at was right in the center of the barrel. It's kind of hard to see. I know it's kind of a little blurry object out there, but you just want to get that as close to the center of the barrel as possible. Once you're happy with that, lock that gun's position into place. If you're on a sandbag, just kind of squeeze that sandbag together, whatever, just make sure that it won't move. For us, we were on a bipod on the front, so I wasn't worried about that moving, but the grip had to come up like a 1/4 inch. It wasn't much. So we just kind of stuffed a t-shirt under that grip until it rested exactly where we wanted. Once you're satisfied and the gun is in place, carefully bring your eye up to the scope and then look through the scope, and we want to bring that so that it's dead center on the bullseye as well. Using the turrets on the top and the side of your scope, adjust that until the crosshair comes down exactly where you want. Generally speaking, the top turret on the top of your scope will adjust your elevation, which is bringing the crosshair up and down, and then the turret on the right side of your scope will adjust windage, which is adjusting your left to right. Once you feel good there, just kind of go back and forth between looking through the barrel and the scope until both of them are lined up kind of right in the middle of that bullseye. That's what we're aiming for. Once both of them look good, now we have to put the bolt back in the gun. And this is what I was talking about having the mag already inserted. Too many times I've done this where I've had to try to put the magazine in without disturbing the gun, and it kind of rocks it and I have to start all over again. So that's why I like already having the mag in. So then I insert my bolt, it already chambers around, and I'm ready to roll. I'm gonna fire my first shot, and like I said, if we did this right, we should be on paper. We should be within about a 6-inch range of that bullseye. Now, if you missed the paper entirely, that's okay. Something just might have shifted in the process. I recommend going back and just starting the bore sighting process all over again and making sure the firearm is totally secure when you go to take that first shot. We were lucky enough to hit our target, so we shot, I think, 4 more rounds. So we had a total of a 5-round group. And when we went up to check it out, they were very close. So there was one flyer that was a little bit down. We generally just exclude those because the other 4 had a really good group. So that was probably just kind of a user error there. So that 4-round group was about 3 inches to the left and a 1/2 inch down. So we knew exactly what to do when we got back to the scope. We were gonna dial to the right 3 inches. And again, with this scope, it's a 1/4 inch adjustment at 100 yards. So we're zeroing at 100 yards, 1/4 inch, I need to go 3 inches. I know it's gonna be 12 clicks. So we adjust our windage knob 12 clicks to the right, and then we wanna go a 1/2 inch up. Once again, we're a 1/4 inch, so I'm going up to that top elevation knob and adjusting it up 2 clicks. Now at that point, once again, we shot 5 rounds, and if all went well, we should be within the bullseye. And once again, I believe we had a flyer, but 4 of the shots all landed in the bullseye, and we were very happy with that. So what's that, like 10 rounds, and we were already hitting a bull at 100 yards. So from that point, you can then know that you're zeroed at 100 yards. You know that wind wasn't a factor, like I said, because at 100 yards, wind's not really playing much of a factor. So then with a reticle like this, where I've got a dead hold BDC, if I know I want to go out to 200, I can go to the corresponding hash mark. 200, 300, 500, whatever it is, I can hold at those other hash marks because my zero is right at 100 yards. And that's really all there is to it. If you didn't hit that bullseye, that's okay. Make a couple more adjustments until you're locked in. And once you feel good about it, once you're satisfied with the day, last step I always recommend is writing down everything you did. So writing down the specific ammunition you used, the rifle you were using it with, just all the different variables so that next time you go out, you know exactly what you did last time and what you're zeroed for. So anyways, that's all we've got for you guys. I hope that this guide helped you out. If it did, please hit that thumbs up button. That helps us out a bunch. Subscribe to the channel. Thank you guys so much for watching, and we'll see you next time.